And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from the break. Well, our next guest first joined us on Flight 74 of the Squawk Ident podcast, entitled A Warrior and a Pilot. She's a Gold SEAL CFI and aircraft owner and president of the Arrow Valley Flying Club, president and co-founder of the nonprofit Montana Cares, co-host to the hit YouTube channel Taking Off, a new homeowner, and most recently, a newly minted line pilot at Sandpiper Air. From her new abode in Denton, Texas, help us in welcoming to the show, Miss Christy Wong. Christy, how you doing?
Doing pretty great today, actually. Thank you. I apologize if it's echoey in here. We still haven't been able to put up any METAR maps, sectional
stuff to make it homely. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a wooden prop up there somewhere above the sofa soon.
Oh, there actually is in the corner over there.
Cool. Fantastic. And congratulations. The last time we had a chance to speak with you was back in March of 2001. And a lot has happened along your journey in aviation. What can you tell us about what's been going on this past year?
Okay. Well, do you want me to start with personal or professional updates?
Well, let's start with the
transition. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Let's stick to the professional, and we'll dive into the personal when you're least expecting it.
Okay. Well, professionally, I was recalled back to the airline. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Oshkosh this year because my training actually started during the week of Oshkosh. However, I'm not upset about it because I was able to get back on the 175 and I was able to get based out of DFW, which made it even better. I know, no commuting. I think I told you guys last year I was based in Chicago, but I never had to go because we never got to fly the airplane. Yeah. Well, this year I not only got based in DFW, but I've been flying the airplane. I went through IOE and passed, no problems. I've had a really great time. And I got to do my very first line pilot flying, and it was 2 ferry flights.
Oh, fantastic. We've been following your journey on social media, and we're just so very proud of you to be going through that. And we all have a stake in Sandpiper, Rob being a former 175 check airman himself. We love that company and just think that it's fantastic. And we're so happy for you. Now, you mentioned a little of the personal changes. We mentioned that you have a new house. We actually had a chance to talk after the last podcast you and I were on because you had invited me out. I had recurrent training the following month, and it was an amazing experience to hop into the Wong Warrior with you and go flying around Denton, Texas. And I had not been in a normally aspirated piston-powered aircraft for, I think we calculated it to like 14 years. And
yeah.
It was amazing. We had so much fun. We talked a little bit about our experience on a podcast that we did afterwards, but thank you again so much for taking me up. And it was fantastic to see your home airport and meet Kevin and get to talk to one of your students. And, man, what a treat.
Yeah. We had so much fun that night. I go back and I remember the coyotes on the runway.
Oh, that's right. Were you guys talking about that?
I remember, coaching you through landings, and we flew all over the place. We did this beautiful scenic flight out over the lake. It was coming towards sunset. The weather had moved off. So the sky was just probably 16 different colors. It was such a fantastic experience to go and fly with you that day.
Yeah, and no traffic in the pattern. We were doing impossible turns, which are not so impossible.
Yeah, and that's one really great thing about the controllers is they know that I love staying proficient. So they'll be like, "Hey, 5-1 whiskey, nobody's in the pattern. Do you want to do some whatevers, and they'll give me a whole bunch of crazy instructions and I have to follow it. And it's a skill set building exercise for me as much as it is a game for them.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And so you talked a little bit about, or hinted to, some professional or some personal changes in your life. What changes are you willing to share?
Okay. Well, previously, earlier in the year, I wasn't really ready to talk about it, but things have improved. And so, Steve and I, a lot of people know that Steve, Wong, and I, we were married. We did get divorced. And so, it's funny how you read about these celebrity marriages falling apart, and they always cite irreconcilable differences. And honestly, that's truly what happened. Steve is not a bad guy, and I'm not a bad person either. It just, we got down to a point where we just could no longer reconcile certain big aspects of our lives. And so we made a mutual decision, a very hard decision, to end our marriage. And, it was really, it was really heartbreaking, honestly. We both kind of flip-flopped a little bit on it. It actually started really and truly, that conversation started early last year, but we sort of tabled it because I was going through training. And then of course we went through COVID and stuff. And so we ultimately, we decided to try to make our marriage work. And when we realized it wasn't going to work, it just, unfortunately, people grow and change. And it's a really hard decision to make when you're growing and changing with somebody who turns into a particular person that you don't necessarily see yourself being with anymore, at least in that capacity. The one thing we did agree on was we agreed to be friends. We've got our 9-year-old son, Mitchell, as well as our daughter, Emily, who's grown and in Las Vegas now. She's doing the adulting thing, but Mitchell and Emily, they are, before Steve and I don't know, we wanted to make it work for them, initially. And when we realized our marriage wasn't going to work, we decided to work on a friendship. So Steve and I agreed weekly family dinners. We get together for holidays, I'll be with them for trick or treating. We'll be together for Christmas. We'll figure something out. We haven't talked about Thanksgiving yet, but he and I agreed, we're still family. And it's just, this is our new family dynamic. Yeah. And we implore others to do that as well, because we want to make sure that Mitchell continues to grow and thrive. We don't want him to get swept in the way of our, we're not even angry at each other. That's not even a good way to put it. We didn't want him to be adversely affected. We agreed we wanted Mitchell to have the best of both worlds.
Sure. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's a very mature and a very honorable way of going about it. I know in a few conversations that we've had, you're in good company. There's so many aviators out there that struggle with relationships and the interpersonal dynamics at home, and it's such a healthy and refreshing thing to hear that you're working on your friendship. That,
yeah,
the key word being working. It's something that you just have to keep working on it, because you have that bond and you have that history together. And in the process of going through initial training again, and having all these outside stresses bombarding your life, all of our lives really, with COVID and with the stress of the economy and mask wearing and mask phobia and all this stuff that's going on, and you're still having to deal with your personal life. Thank you for sharing that, because it's a very refreshing and healthy thing to hear that aviators are much more than just, these stellar stoic figures in the cockpit that never get stressed out and are always doing the right thing. And the truth is, we're people, and we have lives, and we have a lot to deal with, and a lot of personal things outside of aviation. And it's important, in order to make the best judgment out on the flight line, to have a good separation of home and work, but also try to balance the health of it all, because it all affects each other. And it's really good to hear. And in the process, you've been very vocal about moving into your own new place, and we're so happy for you.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next segment of this. So, I at the beginning of this year, when Steve and I separated and decided to get divorced, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy my own place. Then I didn't want to be, I didn't want to live in an apartment. I didn't want to rent a house. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna find a place. So I found this lovely little subdivision of townhomes in Denton, and they were new construction. So I went and checked it out, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Well, a lot of people already know who Kevin is. Kevin has been my best friend for like 3.5 years. The dude literally walked into my hangar one day to inquire about the flying club. And we became really close friends. I mean, this was back when I was a private pilot. So, he would kind of help me along the way. I'd reach out to him for questions. Both him and Marcus were really instrumental in my growth and moving toward Sandpiper Airlines. There was actually a crossroads that I came to previously where I had a choice to make. Do I go to Sandpiper or do I go to another carrier? And both of them had gone to Sandpiper. And so that's, they were able to give me some insider info and tell me all the great things about the company. And that's ultimately why I decided to go. Well, he and I have just stayed close ever since. We, over the last couple of years, developed a really close bond. And so when Steve and I split up, we decided to take the leap. Initially, I said no, poor guy, because I was going through my own changes, but I finally said yes. And we decided to, start dating. And we realized very quickly that we had this really crazy, like, I don't know how else to describe it other than just life partner CRM.
Yeah.
Like really, really connect with somebody on 95% of all levels. And so, he told me, he was like, hey, if you want me to move in, I would move in, and help pay rent and this and that. And I was like, okay. And then the more we started talking about it, I was like, I'm not going to do that. If you're going to do that, why don't we just go into it as a financial partnership, And so we started talking about that. And then we were like, dude, this is stupid. Like, we are so good together. Let's just go in on this house together. So we actually bought the house together. And we've been together ever since. And it's
go for it, Kevin.
It's definitely grown our relationship. I don't know. It's been really great though. Dude, he's an incredible, amazing person. He's an incredible pilot. You've met Kevin.
Yeah.
He's just so thoughtful of me and pretty much everybody around. I could not imagine where I'd be right now if it weren't for him. He's just been so great, Yeah. And I kind of look at it, through the turmoil and tragedy that I went through this last year, because it was a personal tragedy.
For sure.
I'm finding new ways to grow and thrive. And so I'm actually a lot happier than I was a couple of years ago. And that I didn't think I would be. I didn't think I could ever be this happy again.
Yeah. And I know it's crossed your mind. At what point does Kevin upgrade and then you can sling gear for him?
Actually talked about it. In fact, he heard I'll let Kevin, when are you going to upgrade at Sandpiper Airlines?
Yeah. I could right now if I wanted to, but that quality of life as a FO is pretty good. So I don't know, maybe within the next year or so.
Oh, okay. Well, congrats.
I definitely like to.
Yeah, congratulations on that, because when that moment comes, we're telling Christy she's going to have to call you captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually talked about, though, we were like, how great would that be? Like, when I finally get some seniority as an FO and you have seen, a little bit of seniority as a captain, we're going to be able to buddy bid. I mean, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few couples like that in our time over there. It's pretty neat to see that dynamic where, the husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend were able to bid on these trips. And here I am being like really junior. I'm like, how do they do that? How do you bid like that? How do you even get awarded that? But they're just both really senior on both sides of the cockpit, and they were able to do that, and it was really neat.
Yeah, I got to see that many years ago. I was flying with the captain out of Chicago, and his wife was the flight attendant. And we would always kind of bid the same schedule. We were doing, I don't know if you're doing hardline bidding still, but we were doing hardline bidding. And after like the third month of all three of us flying together, and we all got along so great, he's like, "Hey, are you buddy bidding me?" I'm like, "I don't even know how to do that, but okay." And we ended up probably in our careers flying at the time, both at Sandpiper, that captain and I and his wife flew together probably 8 months in total together.
Wow.
And it was great because we check into the layover hotels. They take one room and they're like, "All right, Tony, you get to pick which room you want, or take them both. We don't care." So yeah, if you get that opportunity, it's kind of cool experience to do, while you can. Yeah.
That's a life thing that would just be incredible. Like I couldn't describe it, just because I try to spend as much time with her as I can, and to be able to work with her would just be amazing. I mean, it would literally be like.
Okay, so we're going to talk personal. I know you guys talked about it a little bit earlier about the COVID issue, but I'm just going to put this out there. We both actually got COVID in July, early July. And this is when I realized that we had something really great. Honestly, we got quarantined together for 2 weeks, like literally did not leave the apartment. We were stuck in a, 700 square foot apartment together for 2 weeks straight. And it was amazing. Like
we had so much fun.
Like
COVID ain't so bad, right?
Well,
but it was. I was never like,
I'm gonna kill him. Or I'm so bored with him, I'm gonna kill him. Like we found, and I think the key to that success was we were looking for ways to like entertain each other. Like I didn't want him to be bored. He didn't want me to be bored. So there was always this mutual respect of, all right, let me do something for you. You do something for me or whatever. And it actually turned out to be a really great bonding experience for us.
It was.
You really get to know someone too, right?
Bonus, got the antibodies against COVID. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, so what we really wanted to, I know you're kind of limited on time because today's kind of a big day also over at Sandpiper. You're going to do your base day. And we'll get to that here in a second. But how was your training? You had already gone through training. Did you have to do another long term?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was and here's the deal. They actually, what I really, really enjoyed about that program is that it was the same, but different. It was the same in that, I was back on the 175. I was learning all the same things. I was learning how the flaps flap and how the gears. But they had actually restructured a lot of the training based on feedback previously given.
Oh, okay.
So one of the big complaints we had last year, and I know prior classes had complained, was the fact that there was very little work on like the FMS before going into the trainers, the instrument procedure trainers or the computer procedure trainers. And so you go in there like having read about how to program the FMS, but really no dexterity toward it. Yeah. They actually created an FMS day. So now you get a whole day just programming the FMS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, that was super helpful. Yeah. They restructured some other things as well, but that to me was really, that showed me that they listened to the feedback, which is really great. And I think a lot of people tend to take that aspect for granted, is that, it may not have been perfect when, you went back through training, but we listened to your feedback and we implemented those changes,
Nice.
But so it was going back and relearning all the stuff that I had honestly forgotten. Kevin and Marcus were really great too. They helped me study. They kind of got me back into the groove of things. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's IOE, which is where you're flying with somebody like Rob, and when you were with him. Oh man, I just think how great would that have been if you were still here, man. We would have a blast.
That would be fun.
But yeah,
I'd show you how to do it, how not to do it the right way or the wrong way.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was crazy, you guys. I have so many cool stories to tell from my IOE experiences. So literally first flights, I had APA numbers because we had an MEL on the aircraft.
Nice.
We had delays, weather, reroutes. I mean, it was, I joked with my check airmen that I got quality IOE because I felt like everything was being thrown at us. We had the next day, we had maintenance. It was just crazy. And then, so second day, I'm literally my fourth landing in the airplane. We land in DFW. I'm getting off the airplane. Guess who's sitting in first class?
And he's probably got the critique paperwork.
Yep.
Okay.
No pressure.
Let's see. That landing was super hard and long, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll let you tell that story. That was messed up, man.
Yeah, she was just doing
Huntsville.
She was doing a 2-day trip, and she was doing 6 flights, and she was doing a Huntsville turn for the last to end the trip. And me and a buddy of mine, who was also friends with Christy, were like, the flights are wide open both ways. We should like sneak on and just ride along. And so that's what we did. And it was actually funny because I was actually getting back from a trip at this like almost the same exact time. So I had to land, and I was coming from Mexico. So I had to go run through customs, run over to the Bravo terminal, and
without me seeing him.
Yeah. And then we were like hiding and stuff. And they gave us the seats like right next to the cockpit. So like she came out of the cockpit when we were on the ground to use the bathroom. We were like hiding behind the seat, and it was.
See, lesson learned. You got to check the non-rev list right before you close the door, just in case you have somebody back there that you may know.
No way. I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
There you go. That's the next lesson.
Yeah, Kevin will show you. It's on CCI.
The flight attendant came and like blocked the door at one point. She was like, "Hey, girl." I was like, "Hey."
I didn't want her while I was there. I didn't want to be a distraction or anything like that. You know, it's a big day. You got a lot going on. I didn't want her to be nervous or anything that I was there, because I've had her ride along with me, and at the time I had a lot of time in the airplane, and even then I was still a little nervous. But
yeah,
I just wanted to be.
That's a good nervous. You want to make it perfect.
And that's something that you'll take with you to your last day, is the fact that you were there together, and yeah, those are some fantastic memories to hang on to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you were drinking from the fire hose, as everyone does on IOE. Most people, we tell them they're hanging on by the rudder for the first 2 legs, and it takes a while for them to crawl back into the flight deck and get maybe ahead of the airplane by a step or two. And, you really drank from the fire hose, and you were mentioning that quality IOE. And Rob and I have had this discussion many times. We would always rather have a new hire or a student that struggled a little bit, but had the book thrown at them and they still could get through it, rather than somebody that had absolutely nothing go wrong, everything was perfect, and they did fantastic. Because it's not until you put a little bit of pressure on that you realize what your own personal limitations are, and if you can always redirect to get back into the green, to borrow a term from the threat and error management model.
So my second trip, so that the first trip was just a 2-day trip, right? And I wound up getting like 10 hours out of that trip. So I was halfway done. The second trip was a 4-day trip. And in fact, he had actually said, you should request going through Chicago. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I forgot about it. We were busy moving and stuff. Well, guess what? I got 2 Chicagos on my second trip. I was like, wow, look at this. I didn't even have to ask, The second trip, we had maintenance, weather, flying at night, like through the weather, trying to get through that, Chicago turns twice in one day. I mean, it was just, like I said, it was an incredible experience. And the second check airman said the same thing. He's like, wow, like, yeah, you're getting some quality IOE. This is good stuff. That what was it? No, the third day we had 4 legs and I flew 3 of them, Good. And then, I mean, just, I'm thinking of all the incredible things that got thrown at me. And I'm actually really proud of myself because, man, I was hanging on and I didn't feel nervous. Once I got into it, it was like, all right, here we go. And I just did the thing,
Yeah. And I think you have, as you mentioned, a very good support structure. I know. And that makes all the difference in the world. And my only advice to a listener that, might have a job interview coming up over at Sandpiper, you know who you are. And once you get in there, it's make the friends in your new hire class. Find somebody that looks like they like to study with them. Because, we used to tell us, throw a tennis ball against the wall of the hotel room. And if you can read off the call outs while bouncing the tennis ball, you're fine. But if you can't multitask and bounce the ball, catch it, and read the call outs for the checklist or read the call outs for the flow, then you don't know it well enough yet. So there's so many little techniques that you can pick up studying with a partner, having somebody that's already in the industry or in that airline on that equipment that can help navigate you when you have a question is crucial. And then what Kyle would tell you right now is take advantage of the mentor program. Every single airline has a mentor program associated either with the airline or with the pilot union that they have set up, and take advantage of it. Make those phone calls, because even if you think you've got it, it's just so helpful to have that tool in your arsenal to make a phone call or send an email or text out saying, hey, I got a question about this.
I will say what really eased my mind, I think the most, was that when the check airmen called me, they reached out to me before we flew. Do you have any questions? This is what it's going to be like, welcome back. I mean, they spent probably 10 minutes on the phone with me, just going over, little things, just chatting for a few minutes. And then of course I got to know them during our trips a little bit better, but it really helped put my mind at ease. Just talking to them. I will admit, I was really nervous before that first IOE flight until he reached out to me. And then all of a sudden it was like calm.
Yeah.
I can't describe that. That is huge.
Yeah. And it's something that Rob and I used to do before every single trip with even with a captain upgrade. It didn't matter. You had IOE with somebody. It was an obligation to call them. And a lot of check airmen kind of reneged on that obligation. They would just say, well, I'll see you at the gate, and at the hotel layover, they'll like, okay, see you tomorrow at van time. It's like, well, answer some questions, spend some time, go over stuff that's not flying related that might be helpful to this person who might not know about van times and hotels. And I had one IOE student who at noon, I saw them in uniform in the lobby of the hotel, and our van time was like 4 p.m. And I came down and and I just come in from a run, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, checkout is at noon.
No.
And I was like, bro, you're an airline pilot, Brian. That doesn't count. Go did you turn in your key? Come on, let's go get your key. Yeah. Let's get you back in your room. Go watch a movie.
Some people don't know.
They didn't know. Nobody told them. No one spent the time to kind of walk them through this idiosyncrasy of a process that they had no idea. So, it's extremely important for people like that.
I had a student that got a call from cruise scheduling. I think we started IOE in New York. Yeah, it was New York, and I got a call from cruise scheduling. And they're like, yeah, can you meet your first officer at security? Because he has no clue where to go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, sounds good. So
I was saying, navigating employee parking, even at just at DFW, you're like, what am I doing? Where am I going? I have no clue where to go.
Yeah.
I lost my car in the parking lot first day, first trip.
Oh.
Because I didn't realize there were 3 stops. So when I pulled into the parking lot, and this was back when the bus was in a reverse order. So anyway, when I pulled into the parking lot, which you come in at the last stop, technically, it's hard to explain, but I parked my car at the first stop, and then got on the bus, went to work. 6 days later, come back, and I got off at the first stop on the bus, which is coming in the opposite direction, which I had no clue about. So I got off at the first stop, went to the area where I thought I parked my car, and I'm like, hey, I wasn't driving a BMW. Whose car is that? Why is it in my parking spot? Did they tow mine? Oh my gosh. And thankfully some flight attendant saw the bewildered look on my face, and she was like, hey, are you new? Did you park at the other bus stop? I was like, yes. Can you give me a ride? She's like, yeah, sure. So she gave me a ride, and there was my car.
Leave it to Rob.
Crazy.
So your IOE experience, Christy, was fantastic, and you even had Kevin ride along with you, which was an amazing memory to have. Is there any part of the training, maybe learning a particular system, that really had you kind of hitting the books a little harder than you thought you would have to?
Honestly, the FMS and the FMA, the flight mode enunciator, understanding when you hit this, it's not just about, okay, I hit this button now. When I hit this button, why do I hit this button? Why does it go into this mode? Stuff like that. That's what I'm telling all of my friends who are now going into Sandpiper. I've got 4 mentees underneath me that I'm trying to give, little tidbits to along the way. Hey guys, here's what to expect. These are the things to focus on. Because the 175 is an awesome airplane, and it's got this wonderful VNAV capability, but you have to know how to manage it correctly.
Definitely. Speed on thrust, speed on elevator.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you're like, but it's starting to make sense now. Like it actually has started to make sense, when I actually started flying the airplane, and even when I was in the sim. But the sim training, it's that AQP training. Now we're out there flying the line. But yeah, my first, I'm sitting on standby because I'm bottom of the bottom, and that's just what happens. You sit standby. I call it airport appreciation.
Yeah.
I'm having a really great time doing it because I'm meeting new people. I'm learning new things while I'm sitting there waiting for that phone call. And the first day I didn't get called. So no flying. The second day I got called within the first 45 minutes. Deadhead, ferry flight. And, so I was like, I remember doing this in training because there's stuff that you have to do for ferry flights. You're either ferrying them to maintenance or you're repositioning them, but you have to do this manual weight and balance. And I was like, oh God, I just got used to flying the airplane normally. Now I've got through and what was amazing is you're taking off and the airplane is super light.
Oh yeah.
Max power out. It was just an incredible.
Yeah. TO1 takeoff. Yep.
TO1 Max, dude. Diamond. I was like, I'm on the space shuttle,
Yeah,
that you reached the first crossing restriction at 10,240 knots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And
it was incredible though. And the captain I flew with there, it turns out he's pretty well known in the company. And so I've made a lot of really amazing connections and networks, and he taught me a lot of stuff on it. It was just so much fun. I am super excited about what I'm doing. I'm not even mad. Some people have made comments on my social media about sitting standby. You know what? I'm just excited and happy to be here. You guys don't even know.
It's part of the experience.
I'm sure. But I think some people forget, they look back on it. They're like, oh, standby was terrible. Your life must be terrible. And I'm like, actually, I'm having a really great time. And I think maybe they don't like to hear that. They want me to be miserable too, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Misery loves company. Yep. So don't listen to that. So that ferry flights were always fun for me. And especially when you had a flight attendant on board with no passengers, obviously, because it's a ferry flight. And you, at the time, you could offer them the jump seat. and because most of the time flight attendants have no idea once the door closes what's going on. So you offer them the jump seat and they sit there and you take off. And like you said, it's like a rocket, man. But when you get onto mainline, and I just wanted to share this, as you mentioned, taking off like a rocket. We were in a Neo the other day, leaving Phoenix with 97 passengers on board.
Oh my gosh.
And we're climbing. We're doing a high-speed climb because it's the go-home leg. And so we're doing like 330 knots, somewhere around 18,000 feet, and just climbing nice and easy, 1,500 feet a minute, just screaming out of there. And ATC says, can you slow it to 290, please? And the captain says, sure, flip. And I don't know if you can see that climb rate.
Hi.
Is that 8,300?
8,300 feet a minute. And look at the airspeed trend vector. It is not like through the floor. It's just slowly climbing at 13 degrees pitch, 8,300 feet a minute. And it kept it for 30 seconds before it started to pitch back over. So yeah. And that's a Neo, an Air A321 Neo holds 200 people. So yeah. That was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I just thought I'd share that with you. But yeah, so the FMS system, AMA, those are systems, and I think performance is usually something that gives a lot of people a little bit of trouble. Kevin, what do you think? Have you seen on the line with your fellow pilots and the people you've flown with so far that they have a really good grasp of performance with the training amount that Sandpiper gives during long-term ground?
Yes and no. Like when you have to do, when it's just the standard stuff that comes out of the printer, yes. But it's when you have to do ferry flights and stuff like that. Like I had to help you guys out.
Oh yeah, we were like,
I got a phone call. Hey, how do you look up the VA? I'm like, oh yeah, you got to type this in, look at the back of the checklist, stuff like that. And
when you don't do them all the time,
when you don't do them all the time, you just come out of it. So the normal stuff, yes, people are really good, really strong on it. But when you have to do the non-normal things that you don't do every day, that's when people struggle, which is normal.
Yeah. Well, and what I've noticed about this job is that you can learn as absolutely much as you want to learn. You can choose to be, I just get by with the basic, information, or I can get into the books. And the thing that I love about Kevin is that he'll literally just pull out a section and he'll be like, oh, did you know that the airplane ... And he'll literally go into the AOM and start digging out information that we really didn't go into depth over in training, or maybe they did and I forgot because, but there's a lot of really good info in there, and you can really choose to be, an expert on this airplane if you choose.
Yeah, that's very true. And sometimes I got to admit, I'm guilty of, like, I like the trivia, like Kevin, I like to dive in. That's why Rob and I were check airmen. It wasn't because of the fame and the money and the power. It was because we enjoyed getting asked a question and then not knowing the answer and having to dive into the books to find the answer, and then filing that, putting it in the back of your head in the event that you might need to recall that quickly. You go, oh yeah, I remember that. Just the other day, we landed in Denver at night, and there was a super tug taxiing without an aircraft behind it, just a super tug taxiing, and the air traffic controller told the super tug to give way to us as we were clearing to go into the ramp. And so I read that back, and I looked at the captain and I said, hey, did you know that if they didn't say anything, we would have to have given way to him? And he's like, what? A super tug? I'm like, yeah, a super tug on a taxiway has priority versus an aircraft. And he goes, no way. I said, yeah. He goes, where'd you find that? I'm like, in the AIM. So it's all these little tidbits, and if you really are interested in doing the job and not spending the time to do all that stuff, you're still going to be a safe pilot. You're still going to have a great career. but it's almost entertaining, and a great way to spend time is to dive into the books when you get a chance. I had a captain once told me how I prepare is every month I pick a section, and in cruise when you have nothing better to do, if you, instead of reading a paper, I'm dating myself now, instead of reading a newspaper, you just pick out a section and go through and learn something, you know, or reread something you haven't read in a couple of years. And then
I mean, like I told you, I'll just go through, read a section, and I'll always find something I don't know. I can find 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And another thing that I like to do as well is if I have maintenance on the airplane, I always like to see what they're doing. One time they were going into the avionics bay, and I was like, because they were going to replace a module, and I was like, I'm going down there. And so they're watching them. I mean, it was so interesting to.
Did you ever go through the wheelchair thing in the back of the airplane to look back there and see what they're doing? Hey, what are you guys doing? You know, behind all the galley carts?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen the aft one.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I think that's the aft electronics bay. But I had that happen once. But I was going to say, a lot of times in aviation, at least in my experience, is, you know, the test comes first and then the lesson follows. So, you know, and that's when I do a lot of my studying is I come across a situation where, you know, we're live, we're on the spot, and you got to get it done. You got to do it. And, you know, you end up having to scramble because, you know, there's something that you have to do, you know, in particular a procedure. So, you know, you're like, okay, I don't know what it is, but I got to find it. Okay, bam, found it in the books. Let's do it. And then after that, you know, we get on our way, have 2 or 3 hours to kill. And I'm like, okay, what else do I really need to know about this stuff? And you start scamming through it. And, you know, then you file that, like you said, Tony, in the back of your head and you move on. And then the next time that happens, you're like, I remember this. Let's, you know, a little further knowledge on this now. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christy, I know you need to get going because you have a base day. What is a base day all about?
So once you're done with IOE, you basically have like this in-dock base day where you go and they spend a couple hours with you just teaching you everything that's very specific to that base. Because what a lot of people will do is, let's say you're based in Chicago, but you live in DFW. So a lot of people will actually get their IOE flights out of DFW. So they don't really know a lot about Chicago. They'll get a base day assigned to them out of Chicago so that they could start to learn things. Now, it just so happens I live in DFW, did my IOE here, and this is where I'm based. So I'm based. I'm really excited to see what else I'm going to learn. I'm sure there will be stuff that I don't already know, but and I'll get to meet some of the other people there. There's going to be, I think, 4 of us today, they said. So plus whoever else in the chief pilot's office.
Yeah.
Is Annie Angle still the chief pilot there?
Yes.
All right. Tell her Rob DeJesus said hi.
I will let her know that. I'm sure she'll know what.
Oh, she knows. We've flown quite a few trips together, and man, I don't know how we landed the plane a few times because we were just laughing our asses off all the way down final over whatever nonsense we were talking about. But we've had some good trips together, and she's a great chief pilot and a great pilot and a great leader. So tell her I said hi.
It couldn't have been your Billy Bob teeth that you were wearing at the time.
I think she saw them. I think I had them, actually.
We need to get a picture of that posted soon. But the base days, you'll meet your chief pilot. You'll find out where your mailboxes are. And most importantly, make sure you introduce yourself to the secretary or the admin. Because when you call in sick or you have a problem or you have a question, who answers the phone first is who you want to be on a name by name basis, you know, one-on-one, because that'll make or break how easy you're taken care of. So yeah, definitely make sure you introduce yourself to the admin and enjoy your day.